It's really an honor to be here, and hi to everybody. It's kind of cool that I'm following Gary because I've kind of made a career helping documentary filmmakers think about networks and drive networks in a values-based way. And it was really hard. It was like pulling teeth. And there is a space where filmmakers were like, I'm not about the network, I just want to tell my story. And that kind of diasporic thinking of I'm just telling my story and how it gets distributed and how it gets shared and how it's networked, that it's not the business of the teller, seemed unethical to me and immoral to me. And there are certain things that that kind of positioning doesn't consider. But there's a big problem when you think about networks and technology, is that there's not a lot of fluency with storytellers in technology, and that's an arc that we are on. It's getting easier and easier for filmmakers to understand new technologies, but the work isn't over yet. Ultimately, what I have found after many years of leading this program called the Producers Institute for New Media Technologies is that it's really not about the technology. It's really about stories. And that stories are the emotional context that people need to locate themselves in a larger experience, and the technology facilitates that, but it's not really about it. We all have fractured existences. Who we are is not one thing. You are in a network, but you are not a single node of that network. We are complicated. Films are here to provide a nuanced, contextual story about issues, about experiences, and we cannot expect storytellers to be a single node in a network. We need to be multiple places at multiple times. So what we know, I definitely come from that. So I look at all those, the networks that were up on the slides before, the Twitters, the Facebooks, the Reddits, all of those, and I wonder why. To me, Twitter got interesting when people realized it was a micro-storytelling platform, and that the stories began to have more weight and more gravitas and more, I mean, they could still be funny, but I check my Twitter fall before I read the New York Times. I do. And I get better, more interesting, more poignant, more curated information because of who I follow. Now, when we want to change a culture, we listen to storytellers. Culture is made of stories, so if you want to change culture, or if you want to amplify culture, or if you want to celebrate culture, change the stories. And so if those, for every storyteller in this room, which is all of us, understanding how those stories are distributed is more urgent than ever. Because now if you don't, you tell a story and you might as well keep it in your bedroom with the door closed. You might as well tell a story. It's not just for ourselves that we tell our stories. So those are the things we know. The things that we might not know is that it is not about the technology. I would push back and say maybe it's not so much about the networks themselves, because half of those networks in a few years won't be there. You know, startups happen all the time, new networks, get on here, get on this one, get on this one. I can't know what to join. The problems of Google+, it's like, is anything happening there? Who's on there? You know, it's like, I should be on there, but I don't know what I would do when I get there. It's like, what is the power of that network until we all sort of claim it and find our voices in there? And so, creative ideation needs to be platform agnostic. So you don't get married. I don't want to talk to another filmmaker that says, Wendy, help me, I want to do something online with my film. If it's not in the DNA of the story, it's going to fall flat. And you'll go to a funder or an investor and you'll ask them for $100,000 for a project to build a website that no one will be on in 3 months, and that you'll never gain traction for, and that you're not interested in running because you don't own it. You want to go tell your next story. And so where is that partnership? What are you doing there to kind of to amplify that and to make sure that there is something that's going to sustain it? Because if not, it's irresponsible to go ask for money. So once we find those stories, we all have them, we know them, they're in this festival, they're everywhere. The questions about how we tell them and where we tell them is best answered by who's listening. So you think about when we create stories, that notion of who our audience is, and who our users are, because that's also, we used to talk about a few years ago, the big phrase in conferences like this were the people formerly known as the audience. And so yes, we still are, and that's still kind of fresh depending on what crowd you're in. But right now, it's the notion of user experience. You have to think of your audience that way no matter what kind of storyteller you are. And we're all users of all of those networks. We're participants in those networks. And so the idea is giving people stories to tell. What those networks do is enable sharing. Don't ever build a website where people can't grab information and port it out of that network to start new networks. And don't start a network if you don't have a way to share with people who aren't on there. The idea of if you follow people, if everyone on Twitter, on your Twitter fall who you see is in your area of interest, that is hella boring, as we say in Oakland. Now is the time to expand that network and start, if you're a filmmaker, follow scientists, follow educators, follow product brands, follow people who are going to actually expand your world in the places that you want to be and expand your networks. So there's a bunch of projects. Because I work with filmmakers, there's a lot of storytellers who are working in really thinking creatively about their work. And what I just wanted to do is, my particular point of view is always around stories sparking movements for change. That's the kind of storytelling I do. You know, it's like when I first started working rooms like this, MTV would be on the panel saying, it's so cool because Jackass is on every platform imaginable. It's like, why do we need to watch Jackass on every platform? I don't want Jackass on my phone. I want stuff that matters on my phone. And so, the things that matter to me, these slides are too small, but authored and of all of these words, to me what really matters right now is the participatory audience experience, feeling out how you want your audience to participate. So if you're going back to the network, what do you really need your network to do, and what does your network need? When you think about where is the need for your story in the world, and that will then help bubble up what platforms maybe it should be on. So if you're on the phone, think strategically about the phone. Now we're in a place where every website has to be optimized for the phone. That's how people experience the web now, your network, your phone, your mobile home, that's what it is. But it's just not porting your website over. Think about the interaction that you want to have in there. What do you want your people to do, and what do you want to provide to them? When you need something, you go to your phone. Your story is a data point. As we look for we're in the era of big data. Storytellers are offering data just as much as the big data sets and the databases that are out there giving us the numbers that we need and the charts and graphs that we need. We need those stories. And I encourage you to experience multi-platform storytelling in this way. Go see, this is a project called Question Bridge about Black male identity. It's on the phone, it's on the web, it's in museums. And it is because that's where the people who need to see it are. There's this beautiful website called The Whale Hunt that is made up of thousands of photographs, and you can enter the story in any different way. Every one of those photographs is a data point that starts that story. Every one is something that you can share with your networks and tell that story. And so this one is Cowbird. Really, if you search China on Cowbird, you're going to get stories that you've never heard before and that need to be shared. And there's no video. It's so beautiful and so poignant and so musical. It's text and images. But it's a new network storytelling platform that's meant for sharing and meant for healing. And that's the kind of stuff that turns me on. Ai Weiwei, what's beautiful about, the documentary is phenomenal. His work, of course, transformative. The fact that it plays out on Twitter, not as just a way to market the film, but as a way to experience the story. Because Ai Weiwei tweets, and if you don't understand the tweets, because if you're an English speaker only and you don't understand the tweets, the filmmaker is tweeting on behalf of the movement so that it can spread out. But it's part of the integral making of that story. So I would just like to leave you with this idea that the networks belong to us, and to not wait for the next new website to come out that your story can be on, but we're at a place now where the needs of the story can come first. So if you're a filmmaker and you're thinking of get with the technologists at a table, make friends with developers, learn to write code before you do anything else, because then you can build the internet that we need to be human in the world.